Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us.
Come and
Well, that was such a generous introduction, Sai and Maurizio. And I think meeting you guys and physically meeting you was one of the best parts of this past year. So thank you. I'm on the Mexicantuck, the river that flows both ways, like right on it, the Hudson River, on the land of the Matsunape people, where the Ashokan Wars happened, where there were genocides and that have been erased from the history books. So I'm on that land. I just want to honor that there's that unspoken, not unspoken, but unwritten tragedy that is fermented in the soil that I breathe in every time I breathe in and speak to you. I'm going to start with a short reading, and then we're going to go into the jazz, the conversational jazz that will follow. But this piece is called We Must Risk New Shapes. We must risk new shapes. The shore is a snakeskin of shifting viridescent sheen. The tidal pool's green liveliness singles sun hunger. Convula ruscofensis, otherwise known as mint sauce worm, is a phototropic being, no longer dependent on oxygen to live. The worm eats the sun through the photosynthesizing algae Platymonas that has infiltrated and stained its sheer flesh permanently green. The fusion of worm body and plant hunger so confounded the Englishman J. Keble, who first identified them, that he dubbed the worms plant animals. He called this fusion an infestation and parasitism, but as we learn more and more about our own reliance on our microbiome and the ways in which symbiosis drives biological novelty, the antagonistic terminology of parasitism and infection seem less and less applicable to these intra-bodily negotiations. What is happening between the worm and the algae? The algae live in the worm like an ecosystem, repurposing the uric acid produced as waste by the worm into their own nourishment, dying and lovemaking and community building all within the bounds of another body. These algae then leak their own photosynthetic nourishment into the body of the worm, allowing the worm to subsist on translated sunlight. So tightly coupled is this relationship that the worm's mouths have atrophied and are no longer used following the hatching of the worm larva. The mouth then is a symbol for a more desperate time, the time before union, the time when the worm was just a worm, nothing else. When do you like your body? I like my body when it is with your body. It is so quite new a thing, muscles better and nerves more, writes the poet E. Cummings. Many of us like our bodies best as hybrid. Body plus lover, body plus baby, body plus huge body of water. We forget that it is not the wings of the bird that allow for flight, but the bird plus the lifting air. Where does flight live? In the wings or the air? Or interstitially between the two? Our bodies become pleasurable, become livable and lovable, not alone, but through material interaction. Isn't it strange then that the thing we fear most medically and personally is physical trespass? We fear the infection, the parasite, the physical breach. Body plus is the calculus that allows for pleasure and flight and birth and digestion, but it is also the opening into more ambiguous communions. Those with long-term illness and with a legacy of trauma understand that hybridity is not something you order off the menu. It arrives and makes a home in your body. Suddenly, you are more than you ever thought you could be in ways both terrifying and curious. I'm reminded of my favorite mythic couple, Tristan and Ozold. They who were two and divided became one and united. No longer were they at variance, they shared a single heart. They were both one in joy and sorrow, writes Gottfried von Strasberg in his 13th century version of the Tristan and Ozold romance. The two lovers, initially divided by the sea and by conflicting loyalties, suspended in a boat between their warring countries, are alchemically fused by accidentally ingesting a love potion. I have long loved Tristan and Ozold and its many textual variations, and I have always felt that the romance, although superficially heterosexual, is decidedly non-heteronormative, likenized. Across different versions of the legend, the lovers are not portrayed as practicing courtship or as falling in love. Instead, they are fused, chemically bonded, and afterwards they are not a couple. They are a single being that, for the sake of narrative tension, gets stretched and twisted only so that it can violently, dramatically snap back into its original cohesion. A man, a woman, a man. Tristan, Ozold, Ozold, Tristan, Gottfried writes, suggesting that what has been created is not a romantic union, but a single polygendered, multi-named entity. In an age when the Eurocentric fiction of individuality has deranged our ability to tend to the environments within which we are embedded, it seems important to soften our boundaries, intellectually and bodily. Horrified in the wake of 2 world wars, poet George Oppen mused, obsessed, bewildered by the shipwreck of the singular, we have chosen the meaning of being numerous. Perhaps, realizing that we are constituted by webs of relationship, we must see the singular human species as a sinking ship. We must jump overboard into being numerous, into being other beings, into being quite differently. Our very nucleated cells are the product of an ancient intra-bodily merger between 2 bacteria. Evolutionary biologist Lynn Margolis upended linear narratives of evolution when she demonstrated that we are the product of a transversal intimacy, the symbiogenetic fusion of 2 different prokaryotes. She wrote, in the great cell symbioses, those of evolutionary moment that led to organelles, the act of mating is, for all practical purposes, forever. While we may congratulate our prokaryotic ancestors on their risky decision to half digest each other's bodies, I can't imagine the original union was comfortable. That as species die out by the 100 every day, we may need to fuse our bodies to other bodies. Symbiosis is often a survival tactic. Species impinged by climatological pressures and scant resources try to eat each other, fail, and at some point along the way, begin to co-become. The narrative is neither neat nor heartwarming. It is fraught, and it often fails. But the other option is starvation and extinction. The singular species is a shipwreck. Symbiosis is always a risk, and it has a cost, the shape you recognize, the familiar boundaries of your own mind. Life is a process of addition, a concatenation of matter. Even your solitary self must inhale air. Where does life live? In the air or your lungs? In a time when safety has become the goal of psychology and political discourse, paired with the talismanic abstraction of boundaries, I want to offer that becoming new is never safe. Survival is never safe. It is always a breach, a break in the skin. It is a leap across the abyss. It is the moment you leap into another body. I am a body plus trauma, plus illness, plus pollen, plus spores, plus caretakers and friends and loved ones and wild kin. I am interested in the material incursions that are irreversible, that stain me green, that atrophy my mouth, that teach me how to eat sunlight, how to survive at all costs. Here, world, let me burn the bridge to my old body on my way into your body. I am ready to risk new shapes. Thanks.